Don't you just love her?
Yep.
Mhm.
I do.
I do. She turns my television on for me.
Well, you're
I like her, but I'm looking forward that I don't have to hear her voice again.
Well, welcome everyone. I see that we're all present. Does somebody want to give me a good motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And second,
Have you read them and do you have any discussion about them?
they're wonderfully
David-
short,
I
wonderfully
know
brief.
David did them. Bless his heart. He got
He
them
should
done.
do the minutes for everybody.
Indeed.
Don't forget, you're supposed to attach a copy of the final presentation that resulted from today's meeting. I think you already did that, Maureen. I think that's
Yes, I did.
already attached.
I
Yeah,
let you know right away that I did that.
Right, right.
And thank you for reminding me. Okay, so do I have a motion?
You do in a second.
Who moved? Oh,
I did.
I
oh,
second it.
David?
sorry. I was looking away. And who seconded?
Bob.
Okay, thank you, Bob. All right.
There were two movements.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Let's go in. We have to review these areas that we're going to get challenged on. I don't know whether it's going to be scheduled for this week. Does anybody have a read on that?
Haven't seen the agenda yet.
Kevin is away for Mother's Day with paying up
Correct.
to his mother and will not be back until maybe
Tuesday night.
Tuesday.
Tuesday
So
night.
he usually puts it together. So I don't know whether Olivia is going to put that together, and
Okay.
tell us what's going on in the meeting or not. Your best bet, if Maureen, would be to email Olivia and ask her, because she would be the most likely person.
Okay, so I will do that. And if I get an affirmative, I'll let you all know. So I expected some pushback on the sheriff, and I didn't make a very vigorous argument. I don't think any of us did on that, but I sensed the room was not in support of some of these. So do you want to start with the county manager and just talk about that? And how do you want this, what do you want this to look like when we have, how does it come back again? What would you like to see? Anybody?
Well,
When you ask that, do you mean, do we want to change the way this is?
No,
Presented?
I want to know, we're going to review these to see if we have a better argument or a stronger statement we want to make. I mean, I feel very strongly about the county manager remaining appointed.
I also.
And Bob, go ahead.
It seems to me that when we came to county manager the first time through, that we all were wham, bam, bam, bam. That was it. And we took care of it and went on to other things that might be more controversial. I have to say that I have thought a lot about that since then. I don't know. All I'm saying here is that for me, it's a much closer question than it was at the time. I'm not saying I necessarily favor the person to be elected, but the more I think about all of this power being in the county council and the idea of separation of powers, one of our commenters brought up like last week or so, brought up the idea of, she sounded like she was genuinely aghast about our lack of separation of powers that comes about when you make the county manager a creature of the council. So, I do have that concern. I see that it's working, and I generally like people to be appointed for their expertise, et cetera. So it's just a closer question. I think we do need to consider whether or not the separation of powers, which isn't mandated for us at all, but it's just something in our government that we do look at. Let's consider it.
Who is next? Is it Dick or David? Is it
Dick and David, then Tony.
Okay, Dick, go ahead.
I feel like Bob. I mean, I share some of that ambivalence, but I lean the other way towards keeping it appointed. And the reason is, I think in a small county like this, if we create a fourth elected position that that has independent authority in how county government is run. And keep in mind, our first county manager had a lot more authority. He wasn't elected, but he had a lot of independent authority, and it didn't work very well at all. Now, some of that is personalities, to be sure. But I have a hard time thinking that in a county of this size, that it makes sense or it will serve us better. And we are at the mercy of who the county hires, and but the other way, we're at the mercy of who runs a good campaign. So my inclination is still to leave it the way it is.
As is mine, really.
Okay, David, go ahead.
I agree with Dick and Maureen strongly that it continue to be an appointed position. If it weren't an appointed position, think about it. All of the departments would be reporting up through, other than those under the responsibility of the electeds, would be reporting to the county manager rather than to the county council. And in terms of how you deal with a problem, people often say, oh, I'll get the ballot box. You always can replace it. A county manager run amok who is not being controlled and managed by the county council can do a lot of damage in 2, 3, 4 years if you have to wait to the ballot box. And you have the recall, of course, but that's a long process also. So I think the county manager has to be under the control of the county council. Separation of powers, you can only go so far with that. I mean, we do have some separation of power because we do have electeds. We have 4 electeds. So you could say that those are all separated from the county council, but how do you separate everything from the county council? I think would be a big mistake to assume the county manager is not it's not under responsibility. Somebody has to manage that person day to day, not through the ballot box.
Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am also in agreement that the county manager should remain appointed. I studied this a lot in our governance committee, because my initial thought in the governance committee was that that the legislative arm of the county would be the council, the executive arm of the county would be the county manager. But since our charter is what it is, it's actually it gives authority to the council to be the legislative authority and the executive authority, in the sense that they essentially have the final say about how the different appointed departments run. We need a person that is appointed in that position so that they become the executive officer, if you will, of the county council, dealing with his or her subordinates, and in this case would be the appointed department heads. If we go into an elected position such as what they have in Snohomish, Snohomish is quite large and they have a lot of funding, and it does take some autonomy that the executive has to have. In our area here, in 18,000 inhabitants, a couple of hundred county employees, I'm not sure we need to change that part of government. I think it works fine the way it is. I had my suspicions early on with studying this charter, but after talking to different people, and especially the manager, the way it is now, it works. So I would
Go
say.
ahead, Richard. Thank you. Go ahead, Richard.
It occurs to me, if you want to put it in the starkest terms, if you have an elected manager, it only takes one person to make a bad or a stupid decision. With the council, you got to get 2 people to agree to make a bad or a stupid decision. and I'm not being facetious. I mean, there is some merit in that it's theoretically at least twice as hard to get a bad decision out of a 3-person council.
Well, I feel bad whenever I keep saying in the last commission, but I have to say we dealt a lot with this issue, and it was our perception that the county administrator had too much control in the county and was making decisions that weren't always the right decisions. And the council, part-time and a lot of them, just sort of let it. Rhonda, I know you're here. Could you turn your video off, please? Because you keep flashing on my screen. I see that you're here.
Her video's-
Rhonda? Okay, there you go. Anyway, we tried very hard to keep it clean, and that's why we rewrote some of the duties, and we reinforced that the council has to be in control. And I think that has worked in the last 4 years. That's my feeling. Go ahead, David.
Well,
Oh, you next?
I think so. I don't know if anybody else has their hand
I
up,
think
but-
Bob was next.
But Paul had his hand up, and I don't think he's talked yet, has he?
He hasn't. Paul, are you there? I don't have a picture of Paul.
Oh, I'm right here.
He's here.
There you are. Would you go ahead, Paul? You go.
Well, I just want to share that when we listened to the executive from Snohomish County, he told us that he had, or the executive would have veto power, which I think is something that we want to think about if we move in that direction. Do we want somebody that has that kind of power? I'm agreeing with all of you that I think the point is the way to go. I see that person as the chief executive for the county and that he works in behalf and for the council, but no more power than that.
Okay. So we are in agreement. Now go ahead, Bob.
Okay, was David before me or David? I don't want to.
Your hand is,
Okay,
Your
well,
hand's always up.
no, not true, not true.
well, it is now.
It is.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think what we're doing here is we're mustering our answers for the
Right.
people on the commission who want to go the other way. And this is a very valuable exercise because people could say, well, look, how bad an idea would it be to have the president of the United States appointed by the Congress? Awful idea, giving the Congress executive authority. Why is that? It's because of what you all have pointed out, a matter of scale. And it's so huge that that job has to be someone that the people have entrusted, the authority to, and the Congress, the other job. That's why there has to be separation of powers. When you get down this small, I mean, it makes a little bit more sense to
Yeah.
elect 3 people and say, generally, you guys are in charge with these exceptions. Elected, 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 elected. Doesn't need to be over here. And that's kind of where I come down. I would be for elected if we were a much larger county.
Yeah, and had a bigger budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Now, here's a possible argument to put in your quiver for this discussion. With the county council being appointing the county manager and having both executive and legislative authority, the public has a way of monitoring the county council, commenting at county council meetings, contacting county council members, etc. There's a process that we have as oversight, and it doesn't involve waiting till the next election in 4 years. It's right real time almost. If the county manager were to be elected, then the public would not have the county council as its conduit for monitoring and weighing in and commenting and asking questions anymore of the county council. And so theoretically, they should be able to go then directly to the county manager. But county managers are not set up that way, at least in the current, well, you'd have to modify the charter. Do you want to have the county manager have public meetings and answer questions and listen to citizens comment? You'd have to replace it with some other way of monitoring the county manager. And as an elected, as we've seen with other elected officials, that gets very complicated. I don't know if the public ever weighs in and tells Mylene how they feel, or the treasurer how they feel, or the assessor. I don't know if the county manager, how you do that. Maybe in other counties with Snohomish, there's a way to do it. But think about that, as because you've replaced now a system that's working with the county council being our focus and our ability to monitor and comment, et cetera. Now you're placed with the county manager, and how does the public then replace the county council in that regard? There's no system. I don't know how it does in Snohomish County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. I think it's a good point. So when we have our next roundabout on this, I hope everyone will weigh in with these kinds of points, because I think they're all good and they all make sense. I think, for me, I always think this county has needed less electeds, but we have what we have and we're gonna keep them. And we'll just have to give this another round. I just can't imagine what people are thinking with this election of a county manager.
Can I make one other comment?
We
Does
have
anybody
beaten
else have a point?
we have beaten this to death. It's now 10:46. I would like to suggest that we move on. We have more. I mean, we all agree. How much more time do we have to spend saying we all agree? I think it was
You're right.
important.
You're
We
right.
got out some other arguments.
All right, then let's move on to an even bigger discussion, which is the sheriff. I felt I kind of backed off from making a big argument because my feeling in the other day that the room was very much against this, what we had proposed. So I felt there wasn't a whole lot more I could have added to that discussion. People were fairly fixed in their notions. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am ultimately opposed to having an an appointed sheriff, but I think since our committee is somewhat split on it, and the sense in the bigger room, the CRC bigger room, is that that's what it's going to move forward. I don't think we can spend a lot of time arguing either way in this committee, because especially since the vote was so close in our committee, and committee members have spoken against having the sheriff remain elected. It seems that, as they say, the die is cast. I think the CRC is going to probably agree that the official, the sheriff should be appointed. And I disagree with that decision regardless, but it doesn't really matter. I think the numbers don't work for having the sheriff to remain elected. It looks like to me the numbers will be the other side.
Go ahead, Dick. Go ahead.
Who?
Dick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I disagree. My sense was there's definitely 5 in the full commission, so there's enough to bring it forward. But I think there's still a sizable portion there who are undecided, and I think what's my projection of what's going to happen is we'll bring this forward. It will come up again because there are 5 there. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. And I think it comes down to people's philosophical attitudes toward law enforcement, and that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's a slam dunk that it gets changed.
You might have misunderstood me, Dick. Let me, if I may, Madam Chair, let me explain my point.
Sure,
My
go
point is that we are at the level of, can we get enough people to move it forward as a discussion at the CRC? And I think that is slam dunk. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen when the 18 members vote. That's a different story. I don't know what that is. But what I'm saying is that instead of us spending a lot more time in this committee talking about it, it looks to me like there are enough people that would want to talk about it at the CRC. And that to me is there's no going around that one. Now, the question is, how will the vote be when the 18 members vote? That's a different story. And I think I agree, it's going to be a major discussion. I think we have our own opinions in this group, and I'm sure others will have their own opinions in the larger group.
Bob, do you take your hand down, or is that just constantly?
No, I take it down. I just put it back up right
okay.
now.
Go ahead. Then go ahead.
I just wanted to say that as far, I am very, very close on this. Matter of fact, I believe I was one of the 5 who are asking the whole group to look at it. Not necessarily because I will vote to have it appointed, although I see strong reasons to do that. I think what is happening is that unlike some of the other issues, we have huge national issues which are impinging upon our county. I think that people who are aware of what's happening nationally, and they're aware of the racism in law enforcement, just take that and superimpose it upon a county that doesn't necessarily have those problems. Okay, and maybe it's trying to be in unison with that movement to straighten up law enforcement regarding race issues. I think that's a big thing nationally, and I think it creeps into the brain and makes you think, let's get things, let's have a citizens advisory committee, and let's do a bunch of things to make sure that we don't encounter those problems. So I think that might be part of our response if we're wanting to defend where we are is, hey, take that away. That's not our problem. Let's look at our county, how small it is and how successful the people are who have been in there. I've got to do that myself. I've got to do it myself because I've been very passionate about what's happening nationally and wanting to fix that. But when I turn home and look, I don't see it. I don't see the problem.
Yeah, I understand.
Totally agree.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I've heard a sentiment, I think, from a couple of you that because it was so close in our vote and because it's likely to be controversial, that maybe we should back off in terms of our advocacy for our decision. And I don't think that should be the way we approach it. Don't forget that we were assigned this particular task and we evaluated it. And we, by definition, should be the commissioners, the 6 commissioners who have the most knowledge about the pros and cons of each of the alternatives. And so I think we have an obligation to the entire commission to share that analysis and our debate in terms of our recommendation. And we can point out the negatives. We don't have to all just say that, you know, everybody agreed and there was only positive. We can share that we considered certain negatives, et cetera. But, and then be aware that there's going to be commissioners who maybe don't have a strong position, but they learn that they know that we have studied it and we've taken a position, and their vote might be influenced, could very well be influenced by what we decide to do. Now, there's going to be very passionate people who have thought about this for a long time. They're not necessarily going to be swayed by what we recommend, but there's going to be others who do and are looking to us. And I think we have an obligation to not beat the drums necessarily, but to definitely support our position.
Well, that's what we're trying to come up with here. Go ahead, Tony.
Let me just repeat myself again. I am not saying, let me just say it clearly. I'm not saying that we should not be strongly supporting our decision at the larger CRC. What I'm saying is that instead of us spending any more time on this, it looks to me like it is going to be discussed at the larger CRC. And we've already fine-tuned our arguments for or against it in this group. And it looks to me, I'm not looking at the tea leaves, but it looks to me like there are going to be 5 or 6 people in the larger CRC who would want to move this forward. I am very positive that I'm ready to defend my vote on this committee, and I'm sure others will defend their vote on this committee. The point I'm making is, I'm not saying that we should not be ready to defend it. I'm just saying that we shouldn't spend more time debating the issue in this committee. We're done with this particular issue, I think.
Understood. I get it. Is there anybody want to make a comment? Or that little beagle going to say something?
She has something to say.
What is she going to say? Vote for me.
Yeah, I disagree with Dick. I think we need to refine our advocacy on this issue. I think if we cut it off now, we've spent a lot more time on the county manager than we have on this. And on the county manager, everybody agreed. This is a tough one, and I think it deserves. And it's going to be tough for us to defend our position. It'll be tough for us to be involved in the discussion. And I think because I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I have uncertainty in my mind. I'm not sure what's the right thing to do. And I would like to hear more discussion rather than less, unless we have other pressing issues.
Okay, we have, the next one is a very big issue, but I want to get through this. Go ahead, Dick.
First of all, David, you're disagreeing with Tony, not me. That was Tony who was speaking. I think and I want to point out, somebody said we were somewhat split. Remember, we weren't. There were 5 ayes and 1 abstention, me. And I said, I'm kind of on the fence. So we're pretty close on this. What I think we don't have is good reasoning. For instance, somebody said at some point that they thought the comment, maybe it was a person in the public, allows that being elected allows the sheriff to concentrate more efforts on law enforcement priorities. And my reaction when we said that was, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. and removes the position from council and administration intrusion. Well, yeah, but that, I mean, the whole point, if you want an appointed sheriff, is that the council and administration have some say. So I just think, other than our first sentence, the reasoning is weak.
Well, but we all agreed on that.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
I'm
those
just
are areas we
making
all agreed on. I'm looking at it now. Let's see.
just making my observation.
I think Dick's right.
Well, what would you change? It was Jane that questioned what it meant, concentrating on law enforcement priorities. That was from Jane, and it was legitimate, but she's also running the Equity and Justice Group, and she has very strong feelings about this. So go ahead. Go ahead,
And
Bob.
I could, okay.
Dick was still talking though.
I was
Go-
going to
you
say, I could, okay, whatever.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh,
Did-
I could easily argue that if the sheriff is appointed, he or she can concentrate more on law enforcement priorities, because then you don't have to worry about getting reelected. So I don't find it a compelling argument, is all I'm saying.
Okay,
But
go ahead, Bob.
okay.
Yeah,
A
Bob.
couple
go.
of things. One is, I would like to remind the committee that I believe I originally voted for appointed. And when it came out to be 4 to 1 to 1, for purposes of unanimity, I changed my vote to that because I was very close on it. But if we want to go on to the next thing, we could. If we want to spend a few minutes more on this to sharpen our arguments, one thing I would suggest is someone like myself who really feels more like appointed than anybody else does, maybe, except maybe, people are, Dick's kind of on the fence, but I could give you my arguments and you all could knock them down. Then you'd be prepared to knock down the arguments that come up for appointed in the big committee. If you want to go through that exercise and, spend 10, 15 minutes doing that.
Do you want to do that, guys? Does anybody want to do that? Tony?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not right now. Maybe it's a good exercise. But I agree it's a good exercise, but not right now. What I want to say about the sheriff remaining elected is, which I've said before. I think I want somebody that is answerable to the public. There's no intermediary between that person and us. That intermediary could be a appointed or an elected executive, and of course the elected council. If that person is appointed, I want somebody that is in this community. If I've heard some members of this group say that when you have somebody appointed, you can have the biggest, the brightest, and the best. Well, that might be great, but in my experience on Orcas Island is a lot of the good work that has been done by people that knew the kids, people that knew the neighborhoods, people that knew where the drug dealers are, people that knew where things are. So I think that's that kind of a homegrown position. It to me is way more important than having the best and the brightest. You might get a good example where we've had other sheriffs that have become really good in this county. As far as us being split or not split, yeah, I get the vote was what it was, fellow commissioners, but the language we're sending out, we are sending out a language of being not 5 to 1 or whatever. We're sending a message out that even within us, we're not totally agreeing with ourselves on which side to go on. So that's what I mean by we are, as a committee, not wholeheartedly one way or the other. Not forget what the vote looks like. It doesn't mean much to me. What the language we're sending forward as a committee, it says to the larger group that we are not on board totally with one position or the other. So defending our position one way or the other is important in the larger group. And maybe Bob's recommendation is that he should come up with the one side or the other, and then we can practice.
Yeah. That might be a good idea. Bob, if you would write up some points that you think for the appointment.
You've got like 3 of them, which I think is all there
Oh, no, I
really
mean,
are.
not right
in my
now,
head.
not right now.
I've
If
got
you
'em in my
write them,
head.
if you write them down and then and send them to us, then we could jump into it at our next meeting. Can you do that?
Sure, if that's what you all
Thank you.
want.
That would be better. Okay, I'm trying to move through this. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, and then what I wanted to suggest is that we move on because we have others, and if we have time and we want to, we can come back to this, but
Yeah.
I'd
Let's move
say
on.
let's move on.
Okay, we're gonna move on. All right,
Yeah,
let's,
Can I just ask Marie, when is this going to be discussed by the
we
full
don't know.
CRC?
We don't
Okay,
know.
it's not this week. Let me ask it differently. It's not this week. Is that
I'm
correct?
going to find out. I do not know.
Okay,
They haven't told us yet. So
Middle Thursday.
we have some big issues coming up this week, so it may be next week. So let's just wait and see. I'll let you know as soon as I know.
well, if this is one of those 5 vote things, it's not going to happen this week because that's going to happen at the end. So I'm going to assume it's not happening this week, just by definition.
I know the
All right.
process committee, I know, presents next week.
Next
So,
week.
yeah, on Wednesday. I don't know if that's going to happen, in 9 days. We'll
Okay.
see.
All right, let's go right to this huge issue, which is the requirements that were submitted. And I'm going to ask you, Dick, to pick it up from there because this is unfortunate that we
Well-
got that notice from Randy before this meeting.
Yeah, and I hope everybody's had time to read that and mull that over now. That was frustrating that it came in a half hour before the meeting.
Yes,
I think the question is, I made the point that I talked to all of the electeds and what I proposed to the committee is what I heard from them, except again, I have to point out from Mylene, who said, I'm opposed. No, I'm not going to give you any qualifications. So I just pieced something together from what the others said. But I think, so it was really surprising to me to get this negative reaction from every one of the elected officials. I just thought, what? So, and I want to exempt John Kulsis too, because he just had one point. I think we need to decide, do we feel that it's important enough that we want to go forward with it anyway and say, and bring it, continue to bring it to the full commission for discussion. My inclination is, we might tweak it some based on what the electeds, or at least some of the electeds, told us. But my inclination is to still put it forward, and then we'll get it discussed by the full commission, because I think it's a big enough issue. It ought to be discussed by the full commission.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think the full commission saw this coming, so I think it was kind of a surprise to them. Bob, go ahead. Your hand is still up.
Yes, I do want to say that I I analyzed, I think with the lawyers, I analyzed this legal memorandum that came out from Randy, and it has almost no impact on us. There's almost nothing in it that we would go, oh, we got to change such and such. He spends a long time going over the qualifications for the assessor. Well, we already agreed that the qualifications for the assessor are in there. So you can just take that part and toss it out. Generally, what we're left with is him saying, yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do term limits. He will tell us once we present everything to the commission in his office, he will tell us where there's any conflict with state law, because that's where the stop sign is. If there's conflict in what we're doing with state law, I have to tell you that I don't see any, but he may come up with some. So I don't think we really have anything in here that ought to cause us to do anything more than say, thank you, Randy, and set it aside, because we're ready to go. Now, the other stuff we want to consider about the opinions of the incumbents, that's a different matter. That's all.
Well, yeah, I think I was thrown off because he didn't really offer that much of an opinion. He just went to them and had them offer an opinion. And that's what we're trying to deal with here.
Oh,
Tony, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think on this particular one, it looks to me like we were unanimous in this committee. I think we have good arguments one way or the other, for the support of Dick's condensed version of the qualifications. As you recall, I started by being opposed to having extra qualifications other than what's in the RCWs, but what we've discovered since, with Dick's help and our work here, that we could have some qualifications that are easily verifiable. We don't have to have the qualifications that are, according to Randy's point, sometimes are hard to verify. I get that. So I think we should move forward with this. And when the council or the CRC votes to move it forward to a larger discussion, actually, they don't have to, because that's a priority. That's item that we all passed, did we not?
Yeah, yeah. So
I think
that
we should be
falls-
ready to support our recommendations and let the chips fall where they may when Randy and others get their hands on it in the future. But for us as a committee, we should proceed using the condensed version that Dick produced last last Monday a week ago.
Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
In fairness, I will say I'm perfectly willing to volunteer to go back, look at what the elected said this last time in Randy's memo, see if I think there are changes that we should make. I mean, to respect their opinions on this, and send it to all of you before the meeting. And I will try, given what Wednesday and Thursday look like in terms of our meetings, I'll say it wouldn't be until Friday, but I'm happy to do that if you all think it would be useful.
I think it would be useful, but you've already put so much work into this. I hate for you to have to
I
go
don't
back
mind.
and strip
I
it
don't
down again.
Yeah.
No, I
Okay,
don't
go
mind.
ahead, David.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Dick. I mean, we owe it to our responsibilities in the public to fine tune things where it's necessary, to further the discussion and hopefully get it approved. So I think it makes sense for Dick to do that. One thing I would consider, Dick, is there was comments by at least the assessor and I think maybe the treasurer to the effect that the minimal qualifications would, in some cases, I'm not sure where all, you'll have to make that determination, disqualify people who are already in the department that have, maybe not deputy, because people pointed out they don't necessarily have that title, but people within the department that have been working there for years. I don't know how many years you'd have to say, but that have knowledge of what is going on. They in the auditor's office, there's all these different responsibilities, but they're a team. They've been working together. They know what each other person is doing. They have experience with personalities, with the county council, you name it. And I don't think those people should, by whatever definitions we come up or qualifications we come up with, should not be considered qualified. I think they need to be considered qualified. And so I would suggest adding, Dick, some wording to that effect. I think by doing that, I think we demonstrate that we've listened to Mylene, we've listened to maybe one or two of the other electeds by so doing. And I think it's very important because we have, that's not her talking there, I'm talking. I think it's important that those people be given the opportunity. I mean, and that's how people move up in their organizations.
Go ahead, Bob.
First of all, these qualifications pertain only to candidates who are people who are candidates for these chief offices. Has got nothing to do with the other people in the office. And if we haven't done it already, we need to add something at the end that says these qualifications shall not pertain to the present occupants of the office at this time, or should they decide to run for re-election. We shouldn't do that to them. We should allow people who have been accepted now by the county to keep running without these qualifications, pulling them back. The first time someone other than the present incumbent of the office runs, that person should be qualified according to our qualifications.
Yeah,
That's how it ought to go, in my view.
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree wholeheartedly with what Bob just said.
Yeah.
I just want us to make sure that when you go back to look at this again, to make sure that we're not stepping into what are the qualifications after they get elected, because to me, this important part is a good. There's a line between, are they applying for the job as elected candidates or as candidates? And then when they become elected, what are the next steps for them? Like the
The
education
requirements, yeah.
the requirements, the having more hours on whatever assessor things that they have to have and so on. So I think that's we should separate those two things, because to file the paperwork to become a candidate, we have certain requirements, right? You have to
Well,
be-
qualifications.
we have to, yeah, you have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to be a registered to vote, you have to live in the district. We get those. So what Dick and us have been working on is that adding more of those things to that part of the qualification to run for office. I don't want us to get to a point where we're actually second guessing what the public might want to do when they elect or not elect these people. But I do agree, after they get elected, there's all kinds of material out there, and the local electeds can tell us what they should have, and that should be probably in some document, but probably not an amendment to the charter, other than what happens before they are signing up for candidacy. So I think we're all in agreement on this, it seems like, but it's just a matter of how much more information do we want to put at the front end as opposed to when they get elected.
Go ahead, David.
I'm a little bit surprised. Maybe I misstated, maybe I was misunderstood. I said exactly what Bob said, and Dick agreed with Bob. He didn't agree with me because he didn't mention me. I said the same thing, I believe. I'll listen to the minutes of the video. But I said that the people in that department, yes, if they want to run for office, that they are considered qualified, but not necessarily everybody in the department, as Bob has suggested. But at the very least, certain you could define it some way. I don't know how, but I think I said that. I maybe misstated it. Maybe guys didn't understand me, but I agree. Yeah,
David, first of all, you got to get your name straightened out. You're you got to get the
did
name.
I say Dick? Did I say Dick again?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dick. Tony and Bob. Sorry.
No, I didn't say anything. That was Paul.
No.
Go ahead, Bob.
I want to make clear about that, and then something else. David seemed to me to be talking about not just the elected person in the office, but various other people. I was talking solely about the person who is presently occupying the elected office, that person should be grandfathered in as long as he or she keeps getting elected. It was the first time someone who's not the incumbent is running. That person should be qualified according to our qualifications. Now,
Yes.
I
Sure.
suggest the other thing that I suggest is that we have the language that we use is qualifications for what you have to do when you walk into that elections office with your declaration of candidacy, and then requirements, what you have to do after you're elected. Things you may have to, and that's got nothing to do with what you have to have when you go into the qualifications office. Now, having said that, who's going to draft requirements for these people? It's not going to, the council will not have the authority to do it because those people don't work for the council. The only people that have the authority to do that are us.
Voters.
So if we feel like those people ought to have things that they do after they're elected, further requirements of the office, I'm afraid we have to think about that, or figure a way out to give someone else the authority to come up with those things.
I'm confused. I didn't think we were looking at these requirements as something post-election. This have to be in the front part of the election.
Yeah.
We have to know that they have these things to be
How can you know? How can you know that they have within the first year of their occupancy in the office that they get certain training? How can you know that when the person walks in and has never served in the office? You can't. That's not a qualification. That's a requirement of the office. And so we need to make sure that we don't put any of those things in there and call them qualifications. Now, if we think that there are things that they need to do, like the one I just mentioned for the sheriff, that they need to do once they're in office, if we don't put it down in the charter, it's not going to be required of them by anybody else, unless it's the state legislature, because our council won't have the authority to tell these elected people what to do once they're elected. Right?
Oh, okay. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think the matter of training should be left to a different section, and maybe it's already being dealt with by another committee. But the topic here is qualifications, and training has nothing to do with it. And don't forget, with regard to training, it's all going to be customized depending upon the experience of the prior, or where the person used to work. You can't just have a blanket statement that everybody's going to be trained, because it's going to depend. If somebody's been working as a county manager for the last 15 years someplace else, I'm not sure training really, but I suggest that be left completely out of this discussion and in the wording that Dick's going to come up with. And I got the name right this time from you, Dick. Just one other point, with regard to how to sell this and how to respond to criticism. I think I'm going to suggest, and maybe other people have other ideas of how you sell this. We are a very small community. We have a very small pool of candidates, and we have to be very sure, even though the public has the ultimate say, we have to be very sure that the county or the charter or whatever has done its job of making sure that people are qualified to be on the ballot. Because if one person or two people run, or even one, you don't have a good way of making sure they don't get into office unless we have minimum qualification. In a big county, King County, there you have a huge pool of potential candidates, and you have debates going on in the public, in the newspapers and on media for a year ahead of time. And somebody who's not qualified, even if you don't have minimum qualifications, is going to be outed, and the voters will know. But here we don't have that. We're a very small community.
Well, we have people that run for offices here all the time that are totally unqualified.
Well, that's
I mean,
the reason.
we have
That's
that
what
here.
that's why I'm supporting this. That's one of the reasons. Yes.
Okay. So Richard Grout is going to go back to the drawing board, compare what we have voted in with what comments the electeds have made, and see if there need to be changes. And he's going to send that to us when he gets to it. And then we will, at our next meeting, take a look at it. Okay. It's all good. That's good. Very good. Okay. So Tony, tell me this, you're going to be leaving very soon. Does that mean you're going to be out of range for getting, coming to the meetings in another way?
And I am going to be in range, obviously, because it's Zoom. But the question is, would I have the time and place to be able to connect? And I will try my best to connect at every meeting of the CRC and the committees.
Okay.
Just it's going to be hit and miss. I'm sorry, but I will
okay.
try to be there next Monday, and I'll try to be. I doubt it if I'm going to be at the CRC a week from this Wednesday, but we'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Out of curiosity, where are you going?
I am going to Southern California and then to Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, it's not. Oh, I thought you were going to.
I'm going to check
Mali or someplace like.
No, I'm going to check. I'm going to check Bob's qualifications from.
There you go. That's what I was going to suggest.
Lived there for 40 years.
Wow.
Go-
Wow.
A highway named after you, Bob, or something?
No, nothing. I kept a low profile. I have a theater company that's going there, and I also have TSEA, the Tennessee State Employees Association. Check in with them, and they'll tell you how wonderful I was.
We'll get a review. We'll get a review on you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I think that's all we can do at this point. So having said that, let me get back on here.
Madam
We have
Chair,
yes, go ahead.
11:30 or 12 o'clock.
if you recall last week's meeting at the CRC, there was a question about the term limits, and we were not sure as a group how that will work, if it will affect the current electeds or the coming up electeds, or how would that work? Is it 8, 12? Did we ever wrap that up in our minds, or do we?
Okay, so my experience with this from the last time is that that's really, we can get the information, but it's not really part of our decision. We are creating the term limit concept. We're getting it submitted for the full commission. Randy will work out that later. He will offer that as part of his opinion
God,
and how it works out.
thank you. I think that's great, because I think if that will move forward and it comes to discussion again, I think you would be really in good position to say this is what we're doing. We're just recommending what we're recommending, and let the other powers to be deal with the details.
Yeah, that's really not our say.
Because we spent a lot of time on that last time. I'm thinking we don't know what's going to happen in the future. All we know is that we are recommending a term limit.
Well, I knew that we had some input in last time when we went back from 6 to 3, how that was going to be maneuvered and how it would work out. And there were, it's complicated, but that's really for the PA's office. So
sorry to interrupt on that one.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Bob. We're gonna.
I mean, if they did ask us, I think an easy solution would be to say that the term limits begin with the present council as though each person were in their first term. I know 2 of them are indeed in their first term. The other one isn't, but it wouldn't be fair to chop that person off with this new thing. So just to say, starting now, you got 3 terms. That's the most easy to wrap your head around.
Yeah, that might be something Randy would agree to. I don't know. What I want to get to is public comment. I know that we have Rhonda with us. Rhonda, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, do you have a question that you wanted to ask of us?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. One of the things, just listening, I was kind of in and out of your meeting. I've been interrupted several times, but I kind of was listening to parts of it. So when you're looking at the qualifications for each elected, what I think is I think they should all be similar. So you don't have, like this elected. I mean, I understand that some of the electeds, like the assessor has certain qualifications and the clerk have, different qualifications, but I think there should be a lot of similarity in their qualifications. And then the other, well, I guess I do kind of have a question, or it's just kind of a statement, is like, who would be that person that's going to vet that position when they're, when they're applying for that? Who is going to be vetting that person to say that, yes, they're qualified to file? And then as you're whoever's making that decision, then the public doesn't have a say on, I think you're limiting the public on what the public has a choice of. So I think that if someone may be qualified, but they didn't fit some of those descriptions that you're coming up with, then the public doesn't have the opportunity to vote on that person because you've eliminated them because they didn't qualify by those standards that you've set. So that's all I have to say.
Let's see if you got an answer here, Rhonda.
Right, RCW 29A.24.075, down at the bottom of subsection 3, the last sentence. This may answer the question, but it could be interpreted another way, I think. The officer with whom declarations of candidacy must be filed under this title, and you have to swear that you're qualified on those declarations, shall review each declaration file regarding compliance with this subsection, and the subsection has to do with swearing that you're qualified. So that could easily be read that the person taking it in is the person whose responsibility it is. Now within the office where that is done, I mean, that it may be viewed as the chief elected of that office is the person taking it in and will assign it to somebody. I don't know, but it's not supposed to go to the prosecuting attorney, for instance, to do. It's supposed to be the people who are receiving the declaration according to the legislature.
Right. Okay. Does that make sense, Rhonda?
Yes.
So it sounds like elections would be the first round. The first round would go through elections.
Right. And then the other part is like when you're taking your oath, and that's after the fact. And that's usually the judge that's doing that, or the auditor can do that as well. So
we have some thoughts here. Hold on. Tony or Dick, I don't know which one of you were first.
Dick was first.
Go ahead, Dick.
In response, Rhonda, I would say a couple things. One, that there is state law that we've gone over previously. I mean, you weren't there. That says that when you file your application, you are swearing that this stuff is true. So it's not just the oath you take after you're elected. The other thing is, this is what we're thinking we're going to propose now, but we've had some considerable discussion about how, who, how, and even if you would vet what people say when they file their application. One of the options is you just leave it to the fact that they are swearing when they file that what they've said about their qualifications is true. And if there's an opponent, let the opponent or the public challenge it if they think it's not true. We also discussed the possibility that the official who takes it in, as Bob just read, would do random checks or complete checks. And we can, as part of the charter, we can propose any one of those. My feeling is that we take this to the full commission and raise that fact and let the full commission discuss what do we want to do for vetting, because we went around on it, the different possibilities. We could discuss it again when we discuss what I'm going to bring back to the committee. But I don't think that's insurmountable. It can't simply be left to the fact that they are swearing that what they're submitting is true.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Tony, did you have something to add here?
I did. Let David go. Thank you.
Okay,
Dr.
go ahead, David.
Yeah,
We're almost
well,
out of time.
I agree completely with Dick. And Rhonda, you're right. We are reducing the number of candidates that people can vote on. That's the whole point. We're reducing it to qualified candidates. So we're already doing that by current qualifications. We do nothing. There's a qualification. You have to be over a certain age. You have to be a registered voter. So we're just expanding that list. And yeah, by definition, you're going to be reducing that pool of possible candidates. But that's the whole purpose of this exercise. We think it's to the benefit of the public that we do that we have a system to do that, so we don't have unqualified people. But we don't want it too tight either. And if you heard what I said and others, Tony and Bob, among others, and Tony, I got you right this time. We suggested, and Dick is going to hopefully build it into the next draft of qualifications, that some of the staff, existing staff of various departments, including the treasurer's office, including the auditor's office, as have been suggested at least by Mylene, and I think maybe by you, that given their experience, that they should not be excluded from the pool of candidates. And we heard that, and I think we're going to come up with that addition to the qualifications. Anyway, that's my response.
Okay. Are there any? Oh, there's Tony. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, anytime you think of something brilliant that somebody might have said, you can use my name. It's okay.
Well, it was a big mistake using Dick's name then.
I know. In vain, by the way, in vain.
Thank you for being there. I think our task is one of those tough ones to come up with those kind of words, because I agree that it's going to be tough on some things to be checked at the counter at the elections office. And I think what we're suggesting is what Dick said earlier, is the elections person, when they take your paperwork and you take your $1,000 for applying for whatever that position is going to be, you swear, or at least you sign a piece of paper that says, I am qualified according to whatever documents are out there. There are some RCWs that qualify certain electeds. We know what those are. Bob already mentioned a few of them. So yeah, I mean, but then if there's a discrepancy or there's a problem, let the voters or the other candidates argue that and fight it out.
Okay.
The question is going to be, is that if somebody gets elected with a 60 or 70% margin, what do you do then? That's the problem. But that's.
Hey,
Okay.
can I clarify something?
We're running out of time.
There's nobody goes into the elections office and delivers a form and delivers a check. This is all online.
David,
So
I'm using that as a matter of speaking.
Okay, you too.
Yes.
I get it.
Oh.
It's done online. I get all that.
We're gonna cut this off right now, okay?
Elected-
Rhonda, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to say before we move along here?
No, but thank you. I appreciate you letting me talk.
Oh, please.
you,
We're
Rhonda.
glad that
Thank
you're
you.
here. You always
Thank you for
give
being here.
more information, and that's really helpful. Thanks so much, okay?
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public here that wish to make a comment? I see none. Okay, is there any new business? Just to know, we will, okay, go ahead, Dick.
Well, I just wanted to raise a question and make sure I'm correct. So we really only have 2 issues we're putting forward, right?
We have the requirements and we have term limits.
Yeah.
That's
just the
it.
2. Okay.
That's it. Okay,
We've already put forward.
yeah, we have, but we're
Yes.
gonna go another round or 2 on this. So we are gonna meet next week and we'll meet until we have to, as long as we have to completely talk this out and make sure that we have fulfilled all of our requirements ourselves to bring to the full council. So
Yeah.
count on meeting the next several Mondays.
Thank
Okay,
you. Just a matter of clarification, Madam Chair. David, I use hyperbole, so it's just a matter of,
No,
mean,
I understand.
okay, so yes, thank you.
Yeah, I actually thought Dick said it, but anyway.
we're gonna have to get you some way of identifying these other members here because it's getting confusing. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to kick in here? Otherwise, I'm gonna shut the meeting.
Great meeting, everybody.
It was a
Good,
good
Thank
meeting.
you all. Thank you
I
all.
always like meeting with this group.
You're a fine group. I appreciate all of you. All right, we're gonna end it right here. I'm gonna stop the recording.